My mother gifted our childhood home to my sister, the house I grew up in, the one I painstakingly helped maintain for years, the place that held every single one of my memories, good and bad. Not even a month later, she sat me down, figuratively over the phone, with a pile of her medical bills, thousands upon thousands of dollars worth, and told me it was my solemn duty as her daughter to pay them. They really thought I'd just roll over and accept it. They believed, with a conviction that still chills me, that I'd be the same quiet, dutiful, responsible daughter I'd always been. They were so sure that I would just pay. But they had no idea what was coming. They had forgotten that even the most placid animal will bite when it's cornered. They grossly underestimated just how far I'd go when pushed past my breaking point. They were about to learn, in the most brutal and permanent way possible, that the person they had taken for granted for 30 long years was the one person they should have never, ever crossed. My world, the one I had carefully constructed on a foundation of hard work and independence, shattered on a Tuesday. I remember it with a cinematic clarity, the kind that usually accompanies trauma. It was a perfectly normal morning in Austin, the kind of Texas morning that feels full of promise. I was in my small, tidy kitchen, the one I'd bought with my own savings, watching the steam rise from my coffee mug as the early sun painted brilliant stripes of light across the floor. My life was calm. It was stable. It was mine. Then my phone buzzed, vibrating insistently against the granite countertop. The screen glowed with a single word, Mom. I smiled, a genuine, unsuspecting smile, figuring it was just her weekly check-in, a call I both anticipated and slightly dreaded. But her voice, when I answered, was different. It wasn't her normal, slightly complaining tone. It was thin, reedy, and laced with a practiced fragility that I knew all too well. It was a performance. It was the voice she used when she wanted something from me. "Lara, honey," she began, and I felt that familiar, unwelcome tightness in my chest, a physical clenching in anticipation of the request. "I need your help with something, sweetie. It's these medical bills. They're just piling up, and I'm at my wit's end." I listened, my spoon frozen halfway to my coffee cup as she wove a tale of woe about doctors and prescriptions, co-pays and consultations. As a trauma nurse, I get it. I live and breathe the financial and physical realities of healthcare. I understood the costs, and I'd helped her before, countless times. It was an established part of our dynamic. I would receive a call, listen to the latest drama, and then quietly send a few $100s here and there to smooth things over. It was my role. I was the responsible one, the one with the stable career, the one who meticulously contributed to a 401k. My sister, Katie, was the artist, the free spirit, the one who floated through life on a cloud of whimsy and financial irresponsibility, never holding a job for more than a few months before getting bored or having a disagreement with her boss. "Of course, Mom," I said, my voice already tinged with a resignation I couldn't quite hide. It was the path of least resistance. "Send them over. I'll see what I can do to help." There was a strange pause on the line, a fractional hesitation that made the fine hairs on my neck stand up. It was the sound of a gear shifting, of one manipulation ending and another beginning. "That's wonderful, honey. I knew I could count on you. And there's something else. Some good news, actually." This was it, the other shoe. With my mother, Lois, there was always another shoe, waiting to drop and shatter the piece. "Katie is going to be moving back into the house. She's going to take care of it, keep it in the family. It was getting to be too much for me, so I decided to just sign it over to her. It's her home now." The coffee cup, the one I'd bought from a little artisan shop, just slipped from my numb fingers and shattered on the tile floor. Hot coffee and sharp ceramics sprayed across my ankles, but I didn't feel the sting. All I could hear was a roaring in my ears, a white noise that drowned out everything but her words, replaying on a loop. It's her home now. The house, our house, the 2-story colonial with the faded blue siding in that quiet Denver suburb. The house where I had spent a whole summer helping my dad, Tom, fix the leaky porch roof, learning how to measure twice and cut once. The house where I'd painstakingly painted my bedroom 3 different times, from bubblegum pink to moody purple to a calming sage green, trying to find my identity within its walls. The house where at 12 years old, I carved my initials, E.M., inside a heart into the thick bark of the backyard oak tree. The house I just assumed with a naive certainty would one day be split between us, or that I'd at least have the chance to buy out my sister's share. It was the repository of my entire history. "You... what?" I whispered, the words barely audible. "I gave the house to Katie," she repeated, a distinct hint of impatience coloring her voice, as if I were being deliberately obtuse. "She needs a stable place, Laura. You have your own life down there in Texas. You're fine. She needs this. I just thought you'd be happy for your sister." Happy? She wanted me to be happy. I sank onto a kitchen chair, my head spinning, the world tilting on its axis. The sheer, breathtaking injustice of it felt like a physical blow, knocking the wind right out of me. The house wasn't just wood and nails and property taxes. It was the foundation of my childhood. It was the last tangible connection I had to my father, who had passed away 5 years prior. And she just gave it away, with the casualness of handing off a used sweater, to Katie, the precious little angel who could do no wrong, whose every whim was a command. It was like a supercut of my childhood started playing in my head, but the lens was different now. The rose-colored tint was gone, replaced by a harsh, unflattering fluorescent light. There I was at 10 years old, meticulously weeding the vast garden under the hot summer sun for $5, sweat dripping into my eyes, while 7-year-old Katie scribbled on the driveway with chalk and was praised for her burgeoning creativity. There I was at 16, smelling of grease and exhaustion after a grueling 8-hour shift at a diner, working all summer to save up for a beat-up Ford Escort, only for our parents to buy Katie a brand-new cherry red convertible for her 16th birthday, because, as my mother explained, she was a free spirit and shouldn't have to drive a junker. There I was at 22, graduating from nursing school with honors and a mountain of student debt I'd catered on myself, while Katie dropped out of art school after 1 semester because the structured environment was stifling her muse, an expensive failure that was framed as a brave artistic choice. It was a lifelong pattern, a tapestry of inequity I had been willfully blind to. I was the reliable, sturdy plow horse. Katie was the delicate, magical unicorn. All my life, I had just swallowed the unfairness. I rationalized it. I told myself I was more mature, that I was built for the real world, that I didn't need the coddling Katie so obviously required. I moved 900 miles away, built my own life from scratch, became a successful and respected trauma nurse, and was fiercely proud of my hard-won independence. I thought I had escaped that toxic family dynamic, but hearing my mother's cheerful, utterly oblivious voice on the other end of the line, I realized I'd never escaped at all. I was just a long-distance resource, my purpose in her life reduced to being a reliable, no-questions-asked bank account. "So, let me get this straight," I said, my voice dangerously low, the shock beginning to curdle into a cold, hard rage. "You gave Katie, our sister who has never paid a bill on time in her life, a house worth, what, $500,000 in the current market? A house I helped pay to re-roof, and now you're calling me, from that same house, to pay your bills?" "Laura, don't be so dramatic," she sighed, effortlessly shifting into her favorite role, the long-suffering martyr. "It's not about the money. It's about what's fair. Katie needs the house. She needs the support. You have a good job. You can afford to help your mother out. It's what a good daughter does. Don't you want to be a good daughter, Laura?" The manipulation was so shameless, so transparent, it was almost breathtaking. She was weaponizing my entire identity, the good daughter, the responsible one, the fixer, and using it against me as a tool of extortion. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange, terrifying, cold calm just settled over me, like a sheet of ice forming over a turbulent lake. "Send me the bills, Mom," I said, my voice completely flat, devoid of any emotion at all. "Oh, wonderful, honey. I knew I could count on you," she chirped, audibly relieved that her gambit had paid off, completely misreading my silence as acquiescence. We hung up. I stood there for a long time, the phone still clutched in my hand, just staring at the shattered mess on my floor. The dark coffee was already seeping into the white grout, staining it. For years, I'd been the one to sweep up the broken pieces of my family's life, to clean up the messes my sister and mother left in their wake. They had mistaken my competence for weakness, my love for subservience. As I finally bent down, my knees cracking in protest, and picked up the largest piece of the broken mug, I felt something fundamental shift deep inside me. It wasn't just the mug that had shattered, it was the fragile illusion I had clung to for 30 years, the illusion that my mother loved us equally, that if I was just good enough, responsible enough, generous enough, I would finally earn the same effortless affection she showered on my sister. That illusion was gone. In its place was a cold, hard, unforgiving clarity. I looked at the jagged piece of ceramic in my hand, its edge sharp enough to draw blood. They thought I would just pay. They thought I was a doormat. I had spent my life being trampled on. That single phone call was the first pull on a thread that would unravel every lie and self-deception my family was built on. And I was going to be the one holding the scissors. A week later, a thick manila envelope landed on my doorstep with a heavy thud. It was from my mother. Inside, just as she'd promised, was a stack of bills. But as I spread them out on my dining room table, a cold dread washed over me. This was so much worse than I had ever imagined. This wasn't a few forgotten co-pays or a prescription she couldn't afford. This was a mountain of debt from a dizzying array of specialists, elective procedures, and expensive alternative wellness treatments that no insurance plan in the world would ever cover. There were invoices for cranial sacral therapy, past life regression sessions, a $5,000 bill for a weekend aura cleansing retreat in Arizona, and a series of charges from a place called the Serenity Wellness Collective for things like vibrational sound baths and crystal energy alignment. The total was staggering, more than the down payment I had struggled to save for my own house. This wasn't a request for help, it was a demand for a blank check, a sum clearly meant to be a long-term financial drain on my life. My first instinct, the ingrained habit of a lifetime, was to fix it. The good daughter, the nurse, the responsible one in me took over. I thought maybe I could negotiate with the providers, question the billing codes, set up a manageable payment plan. So I did what the old Laura would do. I picked up the phone, hoping against hope for a single shred of reason, from my mother. "Mom, I got the bills," I said, my voice a carefully constructed mask of calm. "This is a lot. Some of these things, they aren't even medically necessary. We need to talk about creating a budget, maybe see where we can cut back on these elective treatments." The response was immediate and frosty, a sudden blizzard after her sunny disposition a week earlier. "Cut back? Laura, this is my health we're talking about. I cannot believe how unbelievably selfish you're being after everything I have done for you." "What exactly have you done for me, Mom?" The question just slipped out, sharp and bitter. Years of repressed resentment fueled the words. "You just gave my sister an asset worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, an asset I have financial and sweat equity in, an asset Dad always told us was for both of us, and you're calling me selfish for questioning a $5,000 charge for a trip to Arizona to have your aura cleansed?" That's when Katie joined the call, as if on cue. Mom must have had her on standby, her little reinforcement, her emotional attack dog. "Laura, you need to stop upsetting Mom." Her voice dripped with a condescending pity that made my skin crawl. "She's fragile, and you're always so obsessed with money. It's honestly ugly. Some things are more important than money." The hypocrisy was so thick, so suffocating I could choke on it. "That's incredibly easy for you to say, Katie," I shot back, the dam of my composure finally cracking. You're sitting pretty in a paid-off house you did absolutely nothing to earn. You have the luxury of telling me money isn't important, from the comfort of a $500,000 handout you accepted without a second thought. It's not a handout, she shrieked, her voice rising to a childish pitch. It's my home. Mom wanted me to have it. She knows that I'll be the one to take care of her in her old age, unlike you who abandoned her to move all the way to Texas. Abandoned her. The word just hung there, venomous and absurd. I was the one who managed her insurance paperwork from 900 miles away because she couldn't handle the stress. I was the one who set up her online bill payments. I was the one who flew to Denver and slept on a lumpy hospital cot for 3 days when she had her gallbladder removed because Katie was too overwhelmed and emotionally distraught to even visit her own mother in the hospital. You have no idea what you're talking about, I said, my voice trembling with a rage so profound it felt like it could split me in two. Well, it's time to really step up and prove you care. My mother's voice cut in, cold as ice, the final judgment. We thought you could count on you, Laura. Your father would be so disappointed in you right now. And that was it, the final blow, the unforgivable sin, using my dad against me. My dad, Tom, who actually saw me, who praised my work ethic, who taught me how to change a tire and balance a checkbook, who told me with tears in his eyes at my nursing school graduation that he was more proud of my independence and strength than anything else in the world. He would be horrified by this. The raw, searing pain of that comment was the breaking point. In that precise moment, the good daughter died a violent death. She bled out right there on my kitchen floor for the second time in 2 weeks, and this time there was no chance of resuscitation. I took a deep, shuddering breath. When I spoke again, my voice was unrecognizable, stripped of all warmth and familiarity. "I write," I said. "You can't count on me. Not anymore." And I hung up. My hands were shaking, not from weakness, but from a surge of adrenaline I hadn't felt since running my first code blue as a rookie nurse. The gaslighting, the entitlement, the breathtaking narcissism, it was a disease, a cancer that had metastasized throughout my entire family, and I finally understood the only cure was amputation. The next day, I called in sick to work for the first time in years and made an appointment with a lawyer. Not just any family lawyer, a shark. A man whose online reviews used words like ruthless, aggressive, and brilliant. I walked into his gleaming downtown office feeling small and broken, but I walked out feeling like a general preparing for war. He was blunt, unceremonial. The gift of the house from my mother to my sister was, on its face, legal. A quitclaim deed, he explained, was simple to execute. But my mother's expectation for me to pay her bills was not enforceable. It was moral blackmail, not a legal obligation. Then he said something that lit a spark in the smoldering embers of my anger. "You mentioned you helped your father with upkeep and contributed financially to the house over the years." "Yes," I confirmed, my mind racing. "I have receipts. I paid for the new water heater about 6 years ago. I helped pay for the roof to be reshingled one summer when I was home from college. And I have bank statements showing I sent money specifically for property taxes more than once when my mom said she was short." He leaned back in his leather chair, a slow, predatory smile spreading across his face. "Well, now that's very interesting. That could potentially be grounds for a claim of unjust enrichment. But first things first, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's run a full title and lien search on the property. Let's see what this gift really looks like under the hood." For the next 2 weeks, I ghosted them completely. I blocked my mother's number, I blocked Katie's, I blocked them on all social media. Their frantic, angry, and eventually pleading voicemails went into a digital folder my lawyer told me to keep as evidence, but never listened to. At first, the silence was terrifying, ringing with decades of conditioned guilt. But with each passing day, it became peaceful. It became my armor. It was the sound of my own boundaries holding firm for the first time in my life. Then my lawyer called. "Laura, are you sitting down?" he asked, his voice crackling with an energy I couldn't quite decipher. "I am now," I said, sinking onto my couch, my heart pounding against my ribs. Our title search came back, and it's a doozy. The house isn't a clean gift, not by a long shot. Your mother took out a significant home equity line of credit, a HELOC, against the property 3 years ago. There's over $100,000 of debt attached to that house. On top of that, the property taxes for the last 2 years are unpaid. The county has placed a tax lien on the house. I was stunned into silence. A lien? My mother had given Katie a house that was drowning in debt she had secretly accrued. "What does that mean, exactly?" I asked, my mind struggling to process the implications. "It means," my lawyer said, and I could hear the undisguised excitement in his voice, "that your sister, who I'm guessing is not gainfully employed and has a less than stellar credit history, is now the proud owner of a property that is on the fast track to foreclosure. The bank will call the full loan due upon the discovery of the title transfer, and if she can't pay, the county will eventually seize the property for the back taxes. Your sister hasn't been given a gift, Laura. She's been handed an anchor." A hysterical laugh, wild and slightly unhinged, just bubbled out of me. It was so perfectly, poetically insane. My mother, in a single, monumentally selfish act, had tried to unload her responsibilities and her hidden debts onto both of her daughters. She'd given Katie a ticking bomb and handed me the bill for the fallout shelter. What would you do in this situation? Walk away and let the chips fall where they may, or use this new information to fight back? Let me know in the comments. I read them all. Okay, so here's what happened next. The knowledge of the debt changed everything. This was no longer just about fairness or hurt feelings. It was about leverage, cold, hard, legal leverage. My lawyer and I drew up a plan. It was audacious. It was ruthless. It was something the old Laura would never have even dreamed of. We would wait. We'd let the officials' scary-looking letters from the bank and the county tax assessor start arriving at the house. We'd let the reality of the situation, the cold, hard numbers, sink in for Katie. And then, when she was at her most desperate, choking on the consequences of her own greed, I would make my move. Just as we predicted, about a month later, my phone rang with an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message that followed was a symphony of pure, unadulterated panic. It was Katie, sobbing hysterically. "Laura, you have to call me. Oh my God, you have to call me back. The bank, they're saying I owe all this money, $100,000, and there are these letters from the county about taxes. I don't understand. Mom swore the house was paid for. She swore it was all clear. You have to help me. You're the only one who can fix this." I looked at the phone, then looked out my window at the calm Austin street. My lawyer's words echoed in my head. I had all the power. He had just nodded, a grim, satisfied smile when I played him the voicemail. But then, at the end of the message, Katie said something that made my blood run cold and shifted the entire landscape of the war. "I was looking for the deed in Mom's old files in the attic," she choked out between sobs, "and I found something else. A box, a locked box, hidden in the back of her closet under a pile of old blankets. I broke it open. Laura, it's not medical bills. It's not what she said at all. It's something else. I don't think you're going to believe what I found." The hidden box changed the entire game. It was the Rosetta Stone for my mother's years of deception. Katie, in her frantic, self-interested search for a document that might save her, had stumbled upon my mother's secret life. Over a tearful, rambling, and chaotic phone call, which I only agreed to take with my lawyer listening in on speakerphone, she described what she'd found inside that locked box. It wasn't a collection of medical records. It was a trove of casino ATM withdrawal slips from 3 different states, credit card statements detailing lavish shopping sprees at high-end boutiques, and loan documents from shady, high-interest payday lenders. The mountain of medical bills was a complete and utter deception. My mother, Lois, didn't have a mysterious, expensive illness. She had a gambling addiction. Suddenly, it all clicked into place with sickening clarity. The constant, desperate need for cash, the home equity loan she'd taken out against the house, the unpaid property taxes, the vague complaints of ailments that required expensive, untraceable wellness treatments. She had been systematically draining the value from our family home for years, liquidating my father's legacy one slot machine pull at a time, all while playing the part of a frail old woman beset by medical misfortune. Katie, it turned out, had been just as much in the dark as I was about the finances. She genuinely believed she was being handed a fresh start, a secure and valuable asset. Her betrayal was born of a lifetime of cultivated ignorance and casual selfishness, but my mother's was a calculated, long-term deception of staggering cruelty. She'd mortgaged our past for her present thrills. Listening to Katie cry, detailing the sheer volume of receipts and statements, I didn't feel the pity she was so desperately trying to evoke. I felt a profound and chilling disgust. She had been a willing pawn in my mother's scheme, all too happy to accept the grand prize without asking a single question, eager to believe she was finally getting what she deserved. Her panic wasn't for our family's ruin, it was for her own. "So what are you going to do?" she wailed into the phone, her voice shrill with terror. "They're going to take the house, Laura. You have to fix this. You have to make it right." That's when the final, pathetic twist came, the last card played from a losing hand. And I can't deal with this stress right now," she stammered, her sobs conveniently subsiding just enough for her to deliver the line. "I'm pregnant, Laura. I'm going to have a baby. You can't do this to me. You can't let this happen. You'd be throwing your own niece or nephew out on the street before they're even born." I almost laughed. It was so perfectly, predictably manipulative. It was her last, desperate, Hail Mary pass, emotional blackmail of the highest order. She thought a baby would be my kryptonite, the one thing that could resurrect the good daughter from her grave and make her come rushing back to the rescue, wallet open. I let the silence hang in the air for a moment, letting her dangle in her own manufactured desperation. When I finally spoke, my voice was as cold and sharp as a scalpel. "Your pregnancy, Katie, is your responsibility. Just like this house is now your responsibility. You wanted it, you got it. Congratulations." "But I can't afford it," she screamed, the sound raw and ragged. "You have money. You're a successful nurse. You can pay off the debt and save the house for me, for the baby." "No," I said, the single word, a steel door slamming shut, locking them out of my life forever. "I will not pay for Mom's gambling addiction, and I will not bail you out of a mess that you gleefully walked right into. However," I paused, letting her hang on that one final sliver of hope, "I am willing to make you a one-time, non-negotiable offer." My lawyer had prepared this. It was my checkmate. Every detail had been meticulously planned. "I will not give you a single dollar," I explained calmly, my voice devoid of anger or triumph, speaking with the detached precision I used when explaining a medical procedure. "But I am willing to buy the house from you. I will assume the full debt. I will pay off the entire $100,000 home equity loan and the $23,000 tax lien. I will pay those debts directly to the bank and to the county. In exchange, you will sign the house over to me, free and clear. You walk away with no debt, an intact credit score, and zero profit. This is the only help you will ever get from me again. You have 24 hours to decide." The explosion was predictable. She screamed, she swore, she called me a monster, a vulture, a heartless bitch. My mother got on the phone and unleashed a torrent of vile abuse, a spectacular performance of maternal rage and victimhood. I listened to it all without a word, holding the phone slightly away from my ear. When they finally ran out of breath, their fury exhausted, I just said, 24 hours, Katie. The clock is ticking. After that, the offer is gone forever, and you can explain your new financial situation to the bank's foreclosure department. Goodbye. I hung up and turned off my phone. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I paced my apartment, a war raging inside me. Was I being too cruel? Was this a punishment that fit the crime? But every time a pang of guilt crept in, I forced myself to remember my mother's voice, dripping with contempt, saying, "Your father would be so disappointed." I remembered the decades of being treated like a utility, an ATM, a background character in their more important lives. This wasn't cruelty. It was a consequence. It was the bill for their actions finally coming due, delivered by the person they sure would always pay it for them. The call came with just 1 hour to spare. It wasn't from Katie. It was from my lawyer. Katie had called him directly, unable to face me. She accepted the terms. She had no other choice. The process was swift and brutally clinical. Lawyers spoke to lawyers. Documents were couriered back and forth between Texas and Colorado. I never spoke to my mother or my sister again. I wired the money, all of $123,000 of it, directly to the bank and the county tax office. And just like that, 1 month after it was stolen from me, my childhood home was mine, legally, ethically, irrevocably. The very first thing I did was hire a property management company in Denver. My instructions were clear and firm. Change the locks immediately, hire a professional cleaning crew to deep clean the entire house, and throw out anything and everything they left behind. I didn't want a single photograph, a single piece of furniture, a single ghost of their presence remaining. 2 weeks later, the house was pristine and empty. A week after that, it was leased to a lovely young family with 2 small children. That rental income now flows directly into a dedicated investment account every single month. It's a constant, tangible reminder, not of what I lost, but of what I gained back. It's the price of my freedom, paid for by the consequences of their actions. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I wonder what happened to them. I assume Katie had her baby and is likely struggling, living off whatever system she can manipulate. I assume my mother's financial and gambling problems didn't just magically disappear. They are probably out there somewhere, telling a very different, very dramatic version of this story to anyone who will listen. A tragic tale of a cruel, wealthy daughter and sister who stole their family home out of pure, unadulterated spite. It's a much easier narrative to swallow than admitting the truth. Their own entitlement, greed, and deceit were the architects of their own downfall. I lost a mother and a sister. There's a strange grief in that, a phantom limb that aches on quiet nights when a memory of a better, simpler time floats by. But I don't grieve the reality of who they were. Cutting them out of my life was like excising a tumor. The surgery was agonizing, but the recovery, the feeling of finally being able to breathe, of living a life free of their toxic orbit, has been the most profound and lasting relief of my life. I am no longer the good daughter. I am just Lara. And for the first time, that feels like more than enough. I didn't just buy a house. I bought myself. And that's an investment that will pay dividends for the rest of my life. Looking back now, the fiery anger has mostly faded, replaced by a quiet, settled peace. I learned a brutal but necessary lesson. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the very ones most willing to use you, to drain you, to see you as a resource rather than a person. Setting boundaries, especially with family, feels unnatural and harsh at first. It goes against every instinct we're taught about loyalty and unconditional love. But you learn, through painful experience, that your own well-being, your own sanity, and your own peace have to be the priority. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep others warm, especially when they're the ones holding the match and complaining about the cold. I may have lost a mother and a sister in this battle, but in the wreckage, I found my respect. I found my spine. And I've learned that sometimes that's a trade worth making.